Item 1, appointment of chair. I'm stepped in today for Council K, which we agreed on the bus this morning. So we'll go round the table, membership of this committee. Start off with Andrew.
Yes, Chair, I ought to mention this. I am expecting Councillor Ryder, but I don't know quite what's happened. Otherwise, that's good.
Conservative Rufus Clinton. Right. Councillor Firth, how are you today? I'm Councillor Kathy Scott today, sir. Very good. Thank you very much. Nappy?
I'm subbing for Councillor Sarah Probes.
That's as we are today. Item 3, minutes of the previous meeting, from the customers of through record. Item 4, interest in lobbying officer of Councillor Pinner.
Yes, agenda item 12, Chair, that's still Hollybank Avenue, has a number of communications all noted.
Councillor James Mead.
Item 12, the backing one, why?
Yeah. Councillor Thompson.
Item 12.
Councillor Akhtar.
Item 12.
I do about that. Just one email from the concerned about item 12. I did say that I would, as for the order, look at the application of nothing.
Again, item 12 deals with the appointment of payments in the outline surgery. Just procedural information was given.
Councillor Turner.
You respond to item 12, Chair. No advice given.
Councillor Miller.
No.
And I have numerous items on item 12. No advice given. Right. Item 5, admission of the public. Do you have any questions?
No, it's for example, reports at the end of the agenda.
Deputations, petitions.
Excuse me, Chair. Sorry, I'm late.
Right, no. Any other questions? No. Right, we took site visits this morning at Smith's Lane in England, Car Lane, Shepley, and also at find it. Flockton. So now we go to item 11, which is local planning authority appeals.
Thank you, Chair. Julia Stedman, Development Management Team Leader. As you'll see from starting from page 9 of your agenda, there are 5 appeals which are reported. 4 have been dismissed and 1 was allowed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, you want to planning?
Chair. Sorry, Chair, can I make a comment on one of it, because the one that was allowed?
Yeah.
And it's not clear to me whether, because it says in paragraph 2 of the report that certain elements of the application was removed. Now, it's not clear when it was removed. Was it removed after the appeal was finished? And therefore, when they didn't want to be punished? I just wonder whether anybody can enlighten us on that sort of it does look as though that could have put a different complexion on it.
Just to clarify, it was amended during the course of the planning application and not during the course of the appeal.
Right. Yeah, I mentioned this because we had such a good record on planning appeals. Get one allowed is
Want to question it as
yes.
well.
Thank you.
Right, item 12, this is plan application at Hollybank Avenue, up that way.
Thank you.
We'll call you back.
Thank you, Chair. The application property is number 11, Holland Avenue, a two-story detached property in Upper Gatley, is indicated in red on this plan here. Members on the Heavy Woollen Committee visited the site on the 12th of July and deferred the application so that officers could enter into further discussions with the applicant's agent regarding the relationship of the proposed extensions with number 9 Hollyback Avenue. This is the view towards the application site from number 9, with the first photograph here. And this is the view towards the property at the other side at number, in this case, number 13 on your agenda. So since the application was deferred at the last Woollen Committee, the applicant has amended the scheme and has reduced the extension to the side of the property with number 9. The hatched line around here indicates the position of the previous extension which members viewed. Full details of the proposed development are set out in your agenda and were considered and put forward to members as part of the previous committee meeting. So these are some 3D images of the proposed extensions. It's set out previously to members and is set out in this update, in this agenda update. It is acknowledged by officers that the proposed extensions are significant and would change the appearance and the scale of the host property. Furthermore, as members will see from the agenda and the update, there have been a number of objections to the scheme by local residents and their representatives, with further representations being set out in the update. Some queries regarding the procedural matters and the interpretation of policy, as well as objections to the main scheme itself. As I pointed out previously, a full assessment is set out in your agenda, and it assesses in terms of the impact on visual amenity and the impact on residential amenity, which officers consider are the key considerations in this instance. It's concluded in the report, on balance, the proposals are considered acceptable and taking into account the amendments which have been carried out by the applicant since the application was previously deferred at planning committee. Officers consider that, subject to the imposition of conditions, that the proposals are acceptable. Thank you, Chair.
First speaker I've got is Andrew Royston. Is the microphone? If you could just stand with the microphone. Should be able.
Okay.
Yeah.
On July 12th, Councillor Kane, your chair, stated that the applicant should meet with his neighbours for a compromise. This never happened. In this process, justice died at Kirklees Council. Written policies disregarded, statutes broken. In the planning report, subjectivity used to confuse and to mislead. On balance, views were applied incorrectly. It has to be definite. Crucial information was held back from you councillors. Something is very, very wrong. If passed, the law will be broken. A solicitor has made this clear to you all. We were told, become more reasonable, sort it out yourselves, it's a civil matter. Does fear of the Secretary of State motivate this office? Not fairness, equality, justice. Will you be part of this? Kirklees support destruction of my property, my 50-year-old hedge. How can it be replaced? They are forcing me to allow scaffolding into my borders. Who would buy my home for 20 years, be overlooked with scaffolding, the neighbour having access? Approval is wrong because of my unacceptable loss of residential amenity. A solicitor has stated this to you. We were told this could not be approved. Why the change of mind? It's 2.3 times the size, out of character, much higher, outside permitted development rights. No answers. Clearly, it will set an undesirable precedent. You are reminded by a solicitor that this is a material planning consideration. We were advised how to object, as it overlooks, overbears, overshadows, is overdeveloped, residential amenity obliterated. We followed in good faith, ignored, despite every council in the country following it. Every rule in the Kirklees book and national statutes were broken or bent to give these applicants the done deal they say they were promised. The council tried to prevent a committee meeting, only 43 objections. Renowned independent experts, agents of justice were ignored in favour of a misleading, subjective, on balance, incorrect planning report. Thousands of years of justice, fairness and equality died in Kirklees planning. You are the guardians of justice, reasonable people, so do the right thing. You have nothing to fear appeal by upholding refusal. There are solid grounds. Let the Secretary of State decide. Thank you, Chair.
Next, I've got Pat Howden.
Firstly, I would like to say that most residents on Hollybank Avenue are alarmed and dismayed at how the planning department have totally disregarded the government's guiding principles as written in the planningportal.co.uk. Every other council in the country abides by these. Why not here? Planning for councils and offices states it is a formal administrative process involving application of national and local policies with reference to legislation. In 2015, my daughter-in-law applied for a small rear balcony. This was refused by Katie Wilson, the planning officer, on the grounds that it wasn't in keeping with the surrounding area. However, this proposed development projects over 6 metres from the rear of the property and certainly isn't in keeping with the area. Policy BE14 of the Kirklees UDP states that it can only be 3 metres. This is double. Why? The Secretary of State recently highlighted this, stating these policies and guidance seek to ensure that development proposals have no significant adverse effects on the living conditions of neighbours or future occupiers. So why is this being recommended for approval? It beggars belief. I really feel that the loss of amenities, particularly to numbers 9 and 14, will be truly disgusting. The enormous rear terrace is over a single storey high and harms my residential amenity and privacy. It looks directly into my back garden and rear living room. I am 2 houses away. There is a glass barrier which provides no privacy. It is transparent. There is no future proofing of this property. The terrace could be extended in the future. In terms of impact on residents, the proposals are not compliant. This enormous proposal is 2.3 times larger in size than the present, already large dwelling, and totally out of scale with all of the properties on the avenue. It has a much higher roof line and is already on the highest point of the avenue and is a totally alien design. The Secretary of State recently stated that policies and guidance seek to ensure that development is of high quality and its materials, layout and mass respect and have regard to the character and appearance of the surroundings.
30 seconds.
These plans do not exist. Because so many policies have been discarded and broken, I feel the only way forward is for the committee to decline this application. If there's a appeal, let it go to the Secretary of State. Thank you.
Okay. Next, it is Beverly Smith.
Kirklees planning are a total liability. They are relying on you, the committee, to pass this decision, claiming they are the experts. Remember, they have to support this application due to the close working relationship that exists with the applicant, evidenced by the number of amendments and one withdrawn plan. They would look foolish and stupid otherwise. From my back garden, I will look onto 7 walls and projections. My amenity is destroyed, materially determinantal to my outlook. There are no mitigating measures that can be implemented that will suitably and adequately address this harm. My privacy would be lost due to overlooking from the dwelling and the rear terrace. This contravenes Kirklees UDP policies BE2, BE12, policy PLP 24 of the Emerging Local Plan, and paragraph 127 of the MPP 7. BE12 states that new dwellings have to respect residential amenity. Why not my home? Don't listen to the architect who tells you there is enough space to maintain the range around the house without entering my garden. He would say that. There isn't the space now to safely erect ladders or scaffolding without the increased roof height. Remember, if you pass this, a condition will be attached that the dwelling be built and maintained as per the plan. This would conflict with paragraph 55 of the MPPF on the basis that this condition would not be enforceable and would be unlawful, opening up a way for a judicial review. Nothing deserves the answer, it is civil. I ask again, is this the role of the council to abdicate its responsibilities, create legal problems under the Enabling Land Access Act of 1992 and then turn and walk away? The planning department keeps on saying that the Kirklees UDP is only a guideline. Well, let's be absolutely clear on this. These are the same guidelines that the Secretary of State uses in his determinations. They are absolute. The plans either comply or they don't. These plans contravene so many policies, it is extremely worrying for democracy. A solicitor has informed you that passing them would be unlawful. So, people, are you going to accept the words of a department who twist the guidelines to suit their ends, who know by saying on balance that it is not 100% right, that they will give it a go anyway? Or are you going to stand strong, with courage and conviction, knowing that you have strong, justifiable and reasoned grounds to refuse this application, and have nothing to fear in defending your decision at appeal?
Next.
Chair, can I just say before we have any more speakers? Obviously people feel very strongly about this, and this is a democratic process, as is committee, but it's not the place to slag anybody off. We will listen to their representations quite carefully, but can we keep it not civil and not personal, please?
Yeah, agreed.
Absolutely.
Next, we've got Keith Pollard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, as the direct adjoining neighbour, I am once again strongly objecting to this application. The vast majority of Hollybank residents are also objecting, and so far you have failed to recognise the volume of objections. Any planning officer who reads Nick Willock's formal complaint would not hesitate in rejecting this application. And in fact, I've spoken to a Leeds Council and a Wakefield Council planning officer, and both have said this objection should be refused. Indeed, the Kirklees officer, Rebecca Drake, on the 17th of November 2017, when she visited my property for the first application, immediately stated that I had nothing to worry about, that the proposal was far too near to my living room, far too near to my garden, and that it would be refused. She went into detail about it overlooking, overbearing and overshadowing my house, and explained how important it was that this is not allowed. The second application is exactly the same size, so why are we here today? The front windows come out 3.1 metres towards me, and leave only 7.3 metres between the properties, basically a glass wall. This completely takes away my privacy. The council's standard 21 metres policy is being ignored, and the excuse given last time was it is that this policy only related to new houses, and therefore the standard doesn't apply. That simply beggars belief. I have taken legal advice from my solicitor. As councillors, you have a duty of care to ensure that any application is dealt with in accordance with the correct procedures and legislation. You have all been copied in with the Nick Willock email. So passing this application would be both unlawful and grossly negligent. Kirklees Council would, as a result, be liable for any costs or losses which are incurred as a result of your decision. Do not let yourselves be accused of gross negligence. Avoid this by refusing this application. Thank you all for listening.
Next is Nick Woollen.
Thank you. Members, the starting point for assessing these proposals according to planning law is to firstly consider what the unitary development plan says. In this case, policy B13 requires the extensions to be in keeping with surrounding development in respect of materials, design, layout, building height and mass. Neighbouring residents have yet to see any logical or rational explanation as to how a 233% bigger cream rendered, higher than any other and huge in massing property is in keeping with surrounding houses on Hollybank Avenue. Policy B14 says rear extensions should normally be limited to 3 metres in overall projection. The proposals extend out to 6.8 metres, and unfortunately the report doesn't refer to the 3 metre limit or explain why the proposals are acceptable at over double this limit. Draft Local Plan Policy PDLP 24 requires extensions to be subservient to the original dwelling. How can over doubling the size of the property and raising its roof be possibly considered to be subservient? Most seriously, we have a situation here where Mr. Pollard will be overlooked in his living area windows from a distance of just over 7 metres. We ask how the council can conclude this is acceptable when the normal minimum policy standard is 21 metres. Yes, policy B12 relates to new dwellings, but the committee is obliged to consider the same impacts on privacy for extensions just as it would do for new dwellings. Members, the decision you are faced with is one of refusing the application and upholding your own planning policies, or approving the application and accepting that today spells the end to UDP policies on extensions and household design. By approving this application, the effective control over house extensions across the district will be lost. Imagine the conflict that would result if everybody on Hollybank Avenue wanted to more than double the size of their properties. The law also dictates that if you choose to depart from what a policy says, you need to clearly explain why. Currently, the report does not engage with the wording of the UDP policies, and this is simply unacceptable. That is precisely why we are requesting that the application is either refused or deferred to enable this case to be looked at afresh in the light of our recent letter, which raises numerous serious legal and planning matters about this case. Thank you.
Next is the applicant, Mr. Wather.
Good afternoon, Chair, Honourable Councillors and Officers. I'd like to start by thanking you for allowing me the opportunity to speak on behalf of my family in relation to the planning application at 11 Hollyback Avenue, which is our home. I'm Bartley lad. I was born here and lived here all my life. I'm entrepreneur who has a chain of quick service restaurants that employs over 9 people, all in the Kirklees area. I've made my priority to ensure my businesses are fully compliant with all the statutory obligations. All my outlets have a 5-star hygiene rating, and I'm proud to say that as a business we have an excellent relationship with the local authority and its officers. I originally submitted a planning application for this property in September 2017. On review of the application and recommendation from the planning officer, I withdrew this application. On withdrawal, we held into a series of meetings and discussions with the planning department to allay planning and legal concerns for the revised planning application. The revised application has took us almost a year to conclude many meetings and detailed correspondence with the planning officer, Ms. Rebecca Drake. We have worked tirelessly with her and the team leader, Sarah Longburn, to ensure all objections by neighbours and any concerns have been addressed. It was only after the extended dialogue in which both I and my appointed agent devised a scheme to reach a mutually agreeable scheme that the planning officers have recommended the grant of planning permission. There was only one concern with one councillor in our last committee meeting. Again, with the help of your planning department, we acted and complied with what they required. The whole western side of the extension has now been removed. I really just don't know how much more we can do now. All material planning policies have been addressed. The visual impact of the development has also been considered, and we believe through the process of dialogue the design has been enhanced. There are no concerns with regards to effect on the neighbour, club communities, traffic and highways, and all of the considerations have been addressed, and there are no objections. This process of ensuring we are compliant and considered has almost taken a year and a considerable cost to me and my family. As I've mentioned, I am proud of family. I see this as an investment in my town. The development, in my humble opinion, will elevate this area. It will visually enhance the neighbourhood, and I'm sure will add real value to the local community. I would like to request the committee to follow the recommendation of the planning officer who has worked tirelessly to address both mine and the neighbour concerns and follow the recommendation for grant of planning permission. I would like to finish by thanking the chair, the committee, local councillors and the planning department for all their advice, guidance and hopefully a positive decision on the application. Thank you.
Next is Mr. Ganache.
Good afternoon, councillors. Very, very quickly, from the previous committee meeting, we've taken into consideration the issues that came up. We have reduced the single-storey extension to what is existing today, thus complying with the requests made and allaying any concerns about access to the side of the property. Furthermore, in response to the objections raised with increasing the ridge height, whilst the ridge height has been raised, the front eaves height of the property has been reduced to reduce the impact of the neighbour 9 Holybank Avenue. Similarly, the single-storey elements to the side and rear of the property, to the north-eastern side and the south-western side, are well within the permitted development rights that have been submitted, and well within the planning policy framework that has been submitted as well. For this reason, we believe that along with the the council, we believe that the application should be approved as we follow the requests that we made from the first application, which was withdrawn, and following serious conversations with the planning officer, Rebecca Gray. We have tried as hard as we can to allay all the concerns that were met in the previous application, as well as the concerns that were raised in the previous committee meeting. Thank you very much.
That's it for speakers. So, colleagues, over to you.
I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I do apologise. So I haven't actually been to visit the site. I think I actually know the cul-de-sac that you're referring to, and I'm just wondering if I can possibly see. Just again, I just googled it on maps. Do you have any more pictures of the cul-de-sac? Is it the one above Bartley Grammar? Is that the one I'm thinking of? Yeah. Right, okay. In that case, I can only just say how shocked I am. If it is the cul-de-sac I'm thinking of, and those are the plans for that particular house in that cul-de-sac, I'm actually quite flabbergasted that it's actually got to this stage. I wasn't able to open the attachment yesterday when the email came through, so I wasn't able to read the full thing, but actually just looking at this now and hearing the residents. I understand there are laws, and I understand the planning committee, the planning office are working within those laws. And quite frankly, they may not have done anything wrong. It may be legally sound. But at the end of the day, we are a planning committee. We're here not only to follow the guides of the law, but to use our judgment. And quite frankly, I think the plan is appalling. I do agree there is a massive loss to residential amenity for the neighbours. There is a huge overmass of the site, 233%. Sorry. I don't believe it's at all in keeping with the other houses on that cul-de-sac. The applicant's not engaged with residents, which, quite frankly, if I was going to be living there, I'd want to be engaging with them. And it may be a legal development, I understand that, but this is not the right development on this cul-de-sac, and I'm quite shocked it's got to this stage. And I understand that the planning officers have worked legally, and it may be, it should be approved, but we've got to use our common sense sometimes, and sometimes, use our heart instead of our heads. And I agree, once we start allowing properties like this, on cul-de-sacs like this, I think we're opening a whole new can of worms for future developments, and this could be used as an example in the future. This was passed, so why isn't this passed? Why isn't this passed? I think at the end of the day, yes, I understand planning officers have used their heads and have followed laws, but I cannot let this planning application go past me, and I will move to refuse this application point blank. I'm quite angry about it, actually.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. Contrary to what some people might think, there is a degree of judgment involved in this. And it's that there are some things about planning that don't subject themselves to absolutes, that there are planning conditions and policies, but they can be used flexibly on occasions, provided there are mitigating circumstances. On the whole, some aspects of this development I don't have a problem with. Yes, it is a fairly large increase in the size of the original building, but I think the critical part of it is the relationship between this house and number 9. There is a relationship with number 14 as well, but to me the critical bit is certainly with number 9. And I think we have to look at whether we think that the house as proposed has an overbearing impact on the neighbours, and this does apply to 14 as well, I think.
Thank you.
However, this is where we need to use our judgment, because
excuse me, Councillor, it doesn't show my conservative. You've been sorry, Chair.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. The thing about using overbearing impact is that were we to refuse this and it went to appeal, there is no absolute guarantee that a planning inspector will agree with that, and it is one of the consequences of this. I personally think we have got quite good grounds for refusing this, because I do consider that the impact on residential amenity of the two people on either side of this house is quite considerable. Admittedly, not admittedly, the impact is round the back, but both of those houses have gardens, of course, and one of the issues that we have to deal with in deciding planning applications is the effect on residential amenity, including the use of the native gardens. And I think this development would have a considerable impact on their residential amenity. I was also worried in the original application about the relationship with the boundary with number 9, but that issue has been removed, and what is proposed now is not really a problem, because it's the same structure as already exists. But it is the effect on residential amenity that I would use as a reason for refusal. Whether it would be accepted that the bulk, the massing of the building is a separate reason for refusal, I think we need to discuss that. But as I say, I will second the motion and put forward those one, possibly two reasons for that refusal.
So I was here at the last proposal when we had this come through, and I also did a site visit. It was interesting to see, yes, it is going to be a considerably large development to what it was. It was good to see the bird's eye view once the pictures were drawn up and the images were shown as to what the actual impact would have been to both neighbours and what the loss of amenities would be. I've had numerous conversations with both people. I haven't given a decision, and I'm listening to everybody else here. From the last meeting, the trees, the hedges was a big problem for me, and I agreed at that point that if we could arrange for that to be obviously amended, which the residents have come back, and obviously we've taken that off. I would like somebody, I don't know if the officers can remind everybody, because we do have a different group here. If you could remind me, the rest of the group here, basically, what kind of impact it would be visually. From the last meeting, I remember we had some images showing roughly what it was going to be, what it would be once it's developed, if it was developed, kind of thing. And obviously taking my new group here, I think it's just Councillor Penny and myself, that's from the old thing, so I don't think I'll be that way, but if we could just go through that might be a good idea.
This is the number 9 is located here when I cursor it. So this is the amended scheme now, which shows in terms of the reduction in side extension on the gable. There would be an increase in the ridge height here. There's the dormer extension along the rear roof base here. The single-storey extension comes around, and then there's a 2-storey element over here. This, in terms of the boundary of my cursors here, that's number 14 is located there. So this is the wraparound single story, which come around onto this boundary, is shown on the image. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Can I have some guidance from officers? I'm starting to committee on and off for some considerable years. We used to have a rule of thumb, if you like, on extended properties where it used to be about 50% of the original horse building. Does that not still apply anymore?
Yeah. Ultimately, you're talking about what's the design that you're ending up with. Comments such as subservience or respecting character and appearance, those are all relevant considerations. But the issue here is what is the design that you're ending up with? What is the relationship to the neighbours? What is the impact on the character and the street scene? Those are the main matters in front of you today to decide whether what you're seeing is appropriate design.
I just think that the horse building plus the additions are just too big. And the massive.
Chair, thank you. It is a big extension, but it's also a big site. It wouldn't look out of keeping with the site. It's a big site. Sometimes you put a big extension, a small site, it looks overbearing. So I think from that point of view, people will take it. From when we were last time, an on-site visit, we've shown the boundary with the number 9, and the applicants has addressed that. And I always feel that if an issue is being pointed out that can be remedied, and that is done, then I would find it a little bit difficult then to go back and say, well, thanks for that, but we still going to object to it. So I have an open mind at the moment, but I think possibly variance was agree with this. We'll wait and see when everybody else is finished speaking.
Anybody else? Could I just come back here? One of the objectives did say that there is a conservatory missing off of the plan. So the plan has to find that out there and the impact on that.
Through the chair, this is the conservatory being referred to on the neighbouring property. The extensions of the single-storey extension would come out in this location here.
It's hard to visualise what impact it would have, if you know what I mean. I'm not contradicting the objective, I'm just trying to get in mind what impact it would have on that conservatory.
I don't know the site. I'm subbing for Councillor Roberts. Based on the drawings I'm seeing, it is a larger plot. It is a large extension. I do believe, whilst I'm keeping my mind open and hearing all the discussions, I do believe it doesn't fundamentally impact on the neighbours because it is a large plot, and even talking about the conservatory, it's set further back, that extension, because this house is at the head of the cul-de-sac rather than alongside, so it does make a fundamental difference to what it would look like if it was alongside a straight going down and looking like this. It's at the head of the cul-de-sac, so the back is overlooking open aspect, and because it's single story, I don't see how it impacts on the neighbours and their view if that was a consideration, and it isn't.
Trying to sum up and find where the committee is. There are strong views. There's been a move to refuse the planning application, and that's been seconded. And the reason for refusal, first reason about impact on residential amenity on the two adjoining neighbours, and then there was a second potential reason of whether the design and scale and massing was inappropriate for character and street scene. So that has been put forward. The decision will have to be taken on that motion in due course. Then there's some other views. Councillor Firth has suggested, looking at it, there was a scale, the size of the extension caused us some concerns when he looked at it. Councillor Mathers had her comments to look at it and suggested that the extension could be accommodated on the plot given the size of it, and Councillor Turner perhaps has echoed that, I think, in view, particularly picking up where the last meeting got to and the reason for a deferral at that meeting where it was principally focused around the impact on ensuring that the hedge was protected and retained. And I think to take that one step further, one of the planning conditions that's proposed around the removal of permitted development rights for outbuildings could well be extended to all permitted development rights on the plot. So if that was an accepted scale of extension, that's it. It couldn't accommodate any further extensions thereafter to the host property or the original property. There does seem to be a split in terms of where the room is at. The recommendation is before you. It's the same recommendation that you had last time. It was deferred for a reason. The reasons, have they been addressed to members' satisfaction? But there is a motion to refuse on, and that needs to be addressed in front of the committee. I think that sums up the position where you're up to.
Like I say, it has been moved for refusal by Councillor Grange-Mead. It was seconded by Councillor Pinnock. Now I've got down the refusal. Residential amenities, both massive scale. So take a vote on that first. Those in favour of refusing this application on those grounds, please show. Those against refusing, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Abstain. Two. Four.
So if it's the time, so the committee has a tie, or for the chairman, the committee has a casting vote on these issues. Is that correct? John, no? That was his casting, oh right. Well,
I think that's correct.
Oh, did you abstain on the first?
And the refusals were accepted.
Where do we go from there?
Do you vote again and see what your numbers are?
there's 2 abstentions.
It was 4-3.
It was 4-3. It was counting.
Those in favour of refusal, please show.
Councillor Pinnock, Councillor Ida, Councillor Grange-Mead, Councillor Firth. Against refusal. So the application is refused.
So the application is refused on the 2 reasons cited by Councillor Pinnock.
So that's the refusal.
Next item, Councillor April, it's Saturday. Agenda item 13, page 49, and this is a Kirklees of Sweden. Chair, my name is Glenn case officer.
Who's doing this application? Because then there's just got that thing. We just... I want to come back halfway. I might take the opportunity to get a couple of away.
Right, we're all at home anyway, so
Soon be Friday. Again, my name is Glenn Wakefield, and I'm the case officer dealing with this application. Before I present it, I'll just draw the attention of members to the update where an additional letter of support was received after the publication of the report. The details have been summarised in the order. As members will recall from this morning's site visit, the site forms part of an active quarry which overall occupies approximately 9 hectares. This is the quarry in its full glory, as shown on the aerial photograph and enclosed by the red line boundary. It's one of a number of quarries in the immediate vicinity of the crossroads at Sovereign. There's Carn Hill Quarry over here, which is on the opposite side of the road. That's under restoration at the moment. And then the larger Appleton Quarry, which you can just see here in the southwestern corner of the aerial photograph. The site is bounded by Carl Lane here to the north, by Lanehead Road here to the west, and Barnsley Road here to the south. I'll be referring to the phase 1 area when I present here, and this is the area that we're talking about. As you recall, we pulled into this area on this morning. The site originally was granted planning permission in 1947 to extract sandstone. It's been in continuous use ever since. Current permission allows mineral extraction until February 2042. In 2007, an application was submitted to change the phasing arrangement of this site to allow the quarry operator to go into the phase 1 area ahead of schedule. This was approved, subject to the mineral extraction ceasing on the 16th of May 2012. However, an extension of time was requested, so a further planning application was submitted. That was granted, allowing a further period of time to extract mineral up until the 30th of October 2017. That was on the agreement that the actual phase 1 area will be backfilled and restored by the end of October this year. The application seeks to amend a number of conditions which are attached to the current operational planning permission to allow the formation of a junior football pitch and associated parking area as part of the restoration of the phase 1 area. This will require the removal of material from the phase 3 area, which is here. If you remember, we parked the bus in this location here. This is the extent of the current workings, and the backfill operation will require the removal of some material here, some overburden, to then use in the restoration of the phase 1 area. This plan here shows what is proposed. This will be the junior football pitch, roughly in the centre of the site, slightly set at an angle.
with planting around the periphery, which would be native shrubs and trees, meadow grass planting around the edge of the pitch, and then there will be a parking area here that will be sufficient to accommodate a minimum of 20 vehicles. Full assessment of the proposal has been provided in the committee report. I will just go over the key issues and summarise them. The site is within the green belt, although it's an operational quarry. However, due to its current condition and the fact it has been worked, it is classed as brownfield land. Bearing this in mind and the fact that this proposal would deliver outdoor recreation facilities, this would be in accordance with the National Planning Policy Framework in relation to appropriate developments in the green belt. The proposal would result in a landform that is similar to the original landform prior to mineral extraction. There will be some slight differences in order to create a level playing surface. The material to be used in connection with the car parking area would be of a grasscrete style surface. That allows the grass to grow through the surface, so it minimises the impact of that hard surface when you view the site from outside. With regard to local amenity, the site is relatively close to residential properties. I'll just see if I can go back to the aerial photograph. We have residential properties here on Carr Lane and at the southwest corner of the site here, just up Lanehead Road, and on the opposite side of the road here. So they are in relatively close proximity. So there is the potential for them to be disturbed by noise nuisance associated with this backfilling operation. Having said that, the current permission allows the site to be backfilled using the existing quarry waste, and it would be for a limited period only. There's also the potential for noise associated with the proposed use. Obviously, you're concentrating people in that area during football matches. However, it's considered that, bearing in mind the existing noise climate in that area, because you have got a busy main road quite close to the site and commercial activities in this vicinity here, then the actual noise from the use of the site is unlikely to be sufficient to detrimentally affect existing residential properties. The site is located in flood zone 1, so the risk of flooding is very low. The restoration will incorporate measures to drain the pitch, which will involve installing a medium that allows water to permeate through it and find its way to the void here. As you see, this naturally acts as a sump where water collects. At the moment, water is pumped out of this area down to this settlement that here before it's then discharged into Carr Lane Dyke. And those arrangements will continue during the lifetime of the quarry operation. In relation to highways, the proposal would utilise the existing access, which is in this position here. As you remember, we went through it this morning on the bus. It's about 200 metres to the east of the junction with Carr Lane, which is at this point over here. And as part of this proposal, it is proposed to improve the access involving moving back the existing gates, extending the paved area from the edge of the carriageway, taking down roadside vegetation and realigning walls and bunds in the immediate vicinity of the access to ensure that adequate visibility is provided. The quarry will continue to use this access. They would have a separate access once they came in off the road to get into the quarry area, and it's therefore proposed to condition the use of the football pitch outside the hours that heavy vehicles associated with the quarry would operate, to minimise the potential impact of vehicles using the site. We've had 22 representations received in connection with the proposal, 23, including the additional one that came recently.
19 of those support the proposal. There have been 3 objections. The issues raised and the associated responses have been included in the committee report. In this instance, the committee is requested to delegate approval of the application and the issuing of the decision notice to the Head of Strategic Investments in order to complete the list of conditions, including those contained in this report. Thank you, Chair.
First speaker, we've got Michael Moneyfield. He's got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm here to speak on behalf of the football club. I'm the Junior Secretary at Cumberland Football Club. Just to give a bit of background as to obviously why this facility is required. We currently offer teams from under 7s to under 17s at the club with 196 registered players this season, 74 of which live within a mile radius of site, 34 of which live in Shepley Village itself. We are currently seeing teams rise, if you like, from having 4 junior teams 5 years ago to over 17 this year, which is a slight decrease from what we sort of peaked at last year. We are currently spending in excess of £14,000 a year hiring facilities out of area. Our highest cost, if you like, is hiring Penistone Grammar School's 3G pitch, which is the only one available to us in our immediate area. Other than that, we're hiring pitches off the council currently, Parish Council in Berger, Kirklees Council, and also utilising some of the local schools' facilities. This pitch, obviously the size of it is what is the FA recognises as a 9v9 pitch, which is primarily aimed at under-8s to under-10s. So we're not talking huge numbers, we're talking probably 20, we're talking 16 players aside plus a few substitutes, so the land and the car parking or the 20 vehicles have been assessed based on that. There is a shortage of available land within the area from a council perspective and also locally. Prices for land off local farms, if you like, to lease or purchase is quite considerable, something that we're not able to afford in the short term. But also from a council perspective, when I inquired last year for the use of council-owned facilities, the 2 nearest ones we got offered were at Honley and Allenbury, which are approximately 5 to 6 miles away from where we're based. We're probably one of the 2 largest clubs in the area. We have no ambition of taking over the local village, if you like, from a footballing perspective. In fact, we've got the support of Shepley Football Club itself, who run 1 junior team currently, an age group that wouldn't find it suitable for that facility. So with that in mind, obviously we have other speakers here today from a parental perspective, but from a club perspective, we'd ask that you consider approval on this process. Thank you.
Next, it's Anne
Dear Chair, I represent 173 Lane Head Road, which is the nearest resident to the site. The plan will provide 3 important things. Provide a pathway for children away from Car Lane Junction for school children walking down and back through Memorial Woods, reducing the time on the road. The quarry needs restoration. It has been a quarry far too long, too many years. A much needed community use in a 9v9 junior football pitch. At the last planning meeting, which our family attended, Marshalls was described as a bad neighbour, but since engaging with the direction of the council, complaints have reduced significantly. They now want to do something good. At our grandson's school, out of his class, most of the children play football and 12 out of 14 boys play for a team. This plan would allow local Shepley and beyond children a place to play. there is no 9v9 pitches locally. On a personal note, it will improve visibility at Car Lane Junction and remove unwanted greenery blocking views. It's also a great opportunity to develop Marshalls into a good neighbour. Thank you very much.
Next is Jessica Wilson.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm here today as a parent of two young boys, both members of the Cumberwood Junior Football Club. And even my eldest words on hearing that there could be a new football pitch put in for them just up the road was his words, well, that would be amazing. They love football, they play it all the time wherever they can, and to have this facility offered to the village, I also am a resident of Shepley as well, would be fantastic. There is a shortage of pitches. We travel here, there, and when we're trying to arrange our home games, they try to accommodate us as best as possible, but to have a facility specifically for especially the younger age, where my children are at, would be great. It's not going to be sort of used all the day. The kids are at school during the day, and I appreciate there's usages for it, but with it being so local, it would encourage us to walk up to matches instead of having to drive. The kids have bikes. It just opens up whole new possibilities at the moment that aren't open to us because we have to travel by car. So yes, I guess in summary, I would say please approve this application. I think it would be a real asset to the village.
Next, Councillor John Taylor. You've got 5 minutes, John. You don't have to deal with 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Councillors, for giving the opportunity to speak to you today. I think this is a wonderful example of the community working together. What we've done over the last 2 years is we've held a number of public meetings in the village, in the library, when Marshall said to us that this land was available, to say, well, what opportunities are there to make this into a community asset? A number of discussions were had, and this came forward as the most appropriate. I brought with me this nice weighty document here, which I'm sure all councillors here have read in detail, which is our playing pitch strategy for Kirklees, which identifies a shortfall in pitches in this area. And as Michael's already indicated, they do travel quite distances to support it. The one issue that there is about this site, and I know Graham will know this well, is that Lanehead Road is a difficult road, and there have been a number of accidents here, and it is referenced in the report. There have been a number of things done more recently, including changes to speed limits on Lanehead Road quite recently, which will help address that. Also, the restoration of this site will remove the bund that is on Lanehead Road that actually prevents you from seeing up the hill. And actually, as you're coming out of Car Lane, you can't see very well, actually, you're coming into a main road. So it actually will improve the visibility as well as the access points. I tried to look at the shared outcomes of Kirklees and looking at, best start for children, how do we help children, encourage them to remain active, what opportunities are there to learn skills, but not just for the children, because quite a few of the coaches that support the teams actually come from my community and from my village as well. This is a brilliant way of using the green belt in a way that doesn't detrimentally affect the green belt, but provides an additional facility for people locally. And I just strongly urge you to support the officer's recommendations and approve this application. Thank you very much.
Finally, Christopher.
Thanks, Chair. Well, I have 20 points to make, and the previous two speakers have taken the first 10, so I'll hopefully use less time. I'm Chris Nichol. I work as a planning consultant for Marshalls, and it is our team that put this restoration scheme and application together. So, in terms of restoration design at Sovereign, this site is no different to any others, in that there's limitation opportunities what you can do at every site, and compromises are always necessary. The planning permission bans the import of materials for infill and restoration, so any design has to use the materials available on site, and in this case there are good amounts of old tips to help backfill phase 1. This has actually been started in the last 12 months, and the area is now already 2/3 full. So the question is how it's going to be finished off. The current existing planning permission allows the site to be restored to agricultural, woodland, amenity and or nature conservation. So in part, we're amending the planning, we'll amend the amenity element of that to actually do recreation, and it also will deliver on the nature conservation. So in planning terms, the actual variation isn't a massive difference to what's already been approved. But obviously the after use is something which is going to have community benefit. The initial design was only a playing pitch that could have been delivered quite quickly. But noting the size of the land available limits the pitch size that's suitable for junior teams and adult games. The land available will only be about 75 by 50, so there will not be adult games in the future. You know, the junior size pitches is all that can be actually delivered here. The request to include car parking to avoid parking car lane came out through the consultation with the local community and the Highways Authority. This made things a little bit more complicated. And involves wider safety issues which the planning officer related to in terms of sharing the access, and we've dealt with those through that iteration. We've also brought forward consultation comments about improving visibility and reducing wall heights and clearing vegetation. So the scheme does include restoration planting, ecological benefit, and we're trying to therefore meet as many of those competing interests as possible. In summary, the restoration scheme is sought to provide a community benefit, taking into account as many interests as reasonably possible, and will be undertaken at Marshall's expense. The restoration work will be initiated soon. We're hoping material movement is complete in the next few months. We plan to complete it, so the whole scheme will be delivered sometime next year. And then thereafter, Marshall will be responsible for a 5-year aftercare period. So I think once completed, I'll now ensure for a few days the location will make a positive contribution to the local area. In summary, I think we'll have the support here shown, shows that community engagement has worked, it's been a viable experience, and the proposal is a new story that the committee can approve.
What's not to like about this application, Chair? It's as simple as that. It's fulfilling the need of reclamation and the sports facility. That was the recommendation.
Well, pretty clear, but I'm sort of saying that this is a strange site in some ways because it's just in Kirklees, just out of my ward, if you like, but the club that's been operating is in my ward. I know that football club very well, and the people involved in it. It's very well run. They spent an awful lot of money and time over the years improving the site they've already got. And it's a real addition to them because they do have a huge amount of kids playing football in there. And as Eric said, what's not to like? We gained a little bit of improvement on the Lanehead junction, which is a bit of a problem. So again, absolutely, what's not to like? I'll second that.
Yeah, absolutely agree with my colleagues here. Just a couple of questions. I think the last gentleman just answered one of them, which was the care of the football pitch. Did I hear him say that there was a 5-year care plan? Is that correct?
Yeah.
What happens after that 5 years? Just out of curiosity, who looks after the site?
All planning applications have requirements to maintain landscaping or restoration for a period of 5 years of planning permissions. After that time, there's no requirement for that land to be maintained. However, it's possible through the agreement that Marshall's developed with the local football club that there will be a requirement for the club to then maintain the site after that aftercare period to ensure that site.
I add another question to that, please, Chair. I'm just reading some of the points on here about those people who have objected against it. You mentioned that there was car parking for 20 cars. Is there a possibility to increase that at all, or is that the limit?
It would be on this particular site. It would be difficult to increase the size of the car park beyond what you have at the moment. The
red cars, you'll have pedestrians coming to the site as well. So the conclusion of that report was that a 20-vehicle parking area was sufficient to deal with a pitch of this particular nature.
I was just wondering, so I know what you're saying, but is there, if I was doing an application, I'd rather have more car parking than less car parking. Sometimes you get 4 teams turning up at once. So I just asking the question whether or not it would be worth, if there is space, to put more parking in now rather than redeeming the situation in a few years' time when it becomes very popular.
Well, as I say, in order to achieve the balance, parking, football pitch and the amenity planting, it will be difficult to increase it in size.
I'd just like to echo what my colleagues have said. It's a win-win situation. It's business taking on their social responsibility to work and put back something into our communities. It also enhances being council's objective about ensuring that there is enough play space for young people, and we want to encourage health activities, healthy outdoor activities. So I'm saying yes when I'm asked.
Yeah, I would say yes. Just to add to the car parking, I've got 2 boys from 30 up to 17, so I've been to football matches more than I care to remember as far as amateur football. Always the issue was parking, always. And even though it's a junior size pitch at 9 side, my question is more about where the overflow will go, because there will be 20 car parking space. It's okay, you've got 2 teams of 9. But I know for a fact that really everybody goes on their own. Then there's the referee, then there's the coaches, then there's parents and grandparents and etc. So there's always got to be more. Where are they got park? Because somebody did mention that there's been accidents on, is it low there? So where I'm just slightly concerned, not that I'll be objecting, but I'm slightly concerned about the overflow, because I know for a fact over the last 20 odd years of going to football matches that there is a lot of things. So they've got to go on car lane, or they've got to go on road lane, that's already a problem.
I can only reiterate, what the transport assessment indicates. Yeah. I appreciate that there is a possibility that more vehicles will turn up. There could be a position where, if that was occurring on a regular basis, that issue could be looked at some point in the future. But at this particular moment in time, I think we have to accept what the transport assessment indicates.
We've obviously never been large.
Graham, and then I'll do some of that. I don't need to do, I'll let Councillor Taylor come back first.
If we built 40 car parking spaces, we probably might 50 cars turn up. To the east of the site, that road at the bottom there, the road is not a heavily used road. The problem with accidents is at the junction where it joins there. So if you sensibly people will park to the east of that, the other spill, that isn't, as I say, it's not a busy road. Right. It is it is better than some of our villages' facilities for sports, because this happens on a regular football season. There's loads of our in this area roads are blocked by footballers. In summer it's cricket. You have to accept that in the semi-rural area sometimes parking is an issue, but it's not one that's going to. We shouldn't stop this. They'll sensibly park down there. It's wide enough to park and lap traffic on what is a very quiet road. I can assure you that it won't be a problem.
Sure. I'll just address two questions that have been raised, if I can. First, the one about car parking. The club had an arrangement with the Sovereign Pub that they can use the car park at the Sovereign Pub on Saturday and Sunday mornings because the pub isn't open. So if there is an overflow, they can park in the Sovereign Pub. So I think that probably clarifies and clears that one up. And then the second one about the ongoing maintenance. Part of the reason why we supported a Cumberland Football Club, which you might think is odd because it's ingrained all in my world, but the reason we supported Cumberland Football Club taking this on is they've got the capacity to maintain it, and what we're negotiating with Marshals is that they'll get a long lease to the land to the football club, and the football club will take on the responsibility to maintain it after 5 years. So the information is helpful to the community.
Right. Right, I think this is the first time I've ever seen a club that's coming to some good views. On issues of keeping it clean and what have you, I played with Woollen for Mali for years, and when we played at Wharfdale, it was a case of there's a bucket, there's a shovel, finally go out and clear out sheep. So that was one way that they dealt with that. So it's been moved by Councillor Fair, seconded by Councillor Turner. All those please show that's in favour. 10 mil. Thank you very much. Next item. We'll get there eventually. Agenda item 14, which is page 67. And we're out at Manor Chair, again, I'm Woollen Wakefield, Senior Planner, presenting this application. Again, I'd just like to draw members' attention to the latest update and note the additions to the committee report on page 3. We've been having comments from the Legal Local Flood Authority concerning affordable housing conditions. Members will recall from your site visits that the site is located to the east of the centre of Watson Village. I've highlighted it on the aerial photograph there in blue for you. It's in an area that's mainly residential in character. However, as you can see on the aerial photograph, the wider landscape is much more open and rural in character. The site currently comprises of a detached bungalow and extensive grounds. The grounds fall in a southerly direction down in this direction towards the main highway. There are some trees at the southwestern corner of the site in this area here which are covered by a tree preservation order, and that has had an effect on the actual layout of the site. The applicant seeks full permission to demolish the existing bungalow and full erection of 23 dwellings. The majority of the site will be accessed via an access adjoining Manor House, as you can see on the plan here, which would serve these dwellings here. But there is a second access proposed further along Manor House at this point, which would serve another 4 dwellings. There have been a number of house types submitted in relation to this particular proposal, and I will just quickly flick through them so you can actually see them on the screen behind you. Got this one here, which is Collingham, Nostell, Shelley, Studley, Castleton, Wilton, which is a split level design, with a couple of plots on there which I will point out so as I carry on with the presentation. And there is a block of 4 townhouses just as you would come into the site. The majority of the houses on site would be detached, but there are a number of semi-detached properties proposed. As I mentioned earlier, a split design plot which is proposed for a couple of the houses on site, and as I said, it's this block of 4 townhouses, so it does provide a mix of different types of house design on the site itself. To summarise the assessment of this site,
in the committee report, but I will just again go over the key issues and just remind them of what the key considerations are in this particular case. As previously indicated, the site is allocated housing both within the Kirklees Youth Development Plan and the Emerging Local Plan, and has previously received planning permission for housing in the past. Consequently, it's considered that the principle of developing this site for housing has been established. As mentioned earlier, the proposal contains a mixture of house types and designs, and it's proposed it will be faced using reconstituted stone and roofed using interlocking concrete tiles. Officers consider that this mix of house types would accord with the MPTF with regard to boosting the number of suitably designed homes. Furthermore, the density proposed is considered to be appropriate, bearing in mind the constraints associated with the retention of the protected trees. The layout of the site, which I'll just go back to again, just put it on the aerial. There we go. The layout of the site ensures that minimum separation distances between habitable and non-habitable woodland areas has been achieved, both in relation to the surrounding residential properties and within the site itself. Properties to the south on Chessington Drive, which are down here, are at a lower level. However, it's considered that due to the separation distance and the retention of this tree belt, that this proposal will not result in a significant harm to the immunity of the occupants of those dwellings. The proposal would see the retention of a significant number of trees, as I mentioned earlier. These will help to soften the visual impact of this development and to provide habitat opportunities. The application has been supported by an ecological impact assessment. This indicates that the habitats on site are not of sufficient importance to resist the site development. However, it should be noted that the survey carried out as part of this ecological assessment did note the presence of a possible barn owl nest. Consequently, measures would need to be included within this proposal to ensure that adequate mitigation against the impact on this nest is secured. The environmental impact assessment suggests that there should be the erection of an additional nest box and the relocation of the existing nest box at suitable locations along the southern or western periphery of the site. The site is located in flood zone 1, so at a low risk of flooding. Flood risk assessment has been submitted in support of the application. This concludes that the site can be developed without increasing flood risk to the site or other sites in the vicinity. Following the consideration of further information, the legal local flood authority has raised no objections to this proposal with regard to flood risk and the management of surface water. Yorkshire Water has raised no objections to the proposed drainage solution subject to conditions. The issues surrounding the impact on the highway have been considered in the committee road report. I will ask my colleague Brian King just to expand the detail on that issue.
Very good, Chair. Brian King, the Highway Development Management. To summarise the highway section of the report, the proposal 23 lines is to generate an estimated 18 two-way movements in the AM and PM peak periods, with 10 of those movements assigned through the centre of the village. I'd just like to reiterate that this proposal is no different to the previously approved outline application in terms of traffic generation. The acceptance of this traffic generation takes into account the traffic generation associated with the ongoing Flockton Working Men's Club site and Flockton Hall Farm applications. Thank you, Chair.
With regard to affordable housing, as the site exceeds 10 houses, then the development should provide 20% affordable units as part of this development, or a financial contribution in lieu in accordance with the Kirklees interim affordable housing policy. Following assessment of the site's viability, it's been confirmed that £115,000 would be potentially available in relation to affordable housing. Viability assessment was provided in support of this proposal, and this has been independently assessed on behalf of the Council. The
The Council's strategic housing team has indicated that this could secure 3 social rent units on site. As the application site exceeds 0.4 hectare, the proposal should include an element of public open space, or again provide financial contribution towards off-site provision. The proposed layout does not include any QS, and the results of the viability assessment indicate that financial contribution towards off-site QS is unlikely. However, bearing in mind the constraints affecting the layout of the site, officers consider that it would be reasonable to allow this development without the POS contribution, as a much larger development scheme has already provided a significant contribution towards the upgrade of a nearby play area off Park Side, which is approximately 400 metres to the west of this site. We've had 9 representations in relation to this proposal and a petition from the residents of Chessington Drive. The issues raised have been summarised and responses included in the committee report. It's recommended that the committee delegate approval of this application and the issuing of the decision notice to the Head of Strategic Investment in order to complete the list of conditions, including those contained within the report, and to secure the provision of 3 social rent affordable housing units. Thank you.
Chair, this has already been outlined by Commissioner, hasn't it? So I think I've actually moved that we accept this application and the conditions that are attached, especially the social housing unit, slightly less than 30%.
Second term. Thank you. Any more? That's been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please show. Next item, page 87. This is Simon Mills LD.
Thank you, Chair. My name is John Ritchie, I'm the planning officer. The application relates to the planning permission for the erection of 62 dwellings, which is currently nearing completion. The application is made by Connect Housing Association to alter the terms of the Section 106 agreement regarding the provision of social housing. The agreement originally was to provide four apartments at sub-market rent, which equates to 80% of the prevailing market rent. The landowner was required to let the units at an affordable rent, and 50% of the rent paid during the first 2 years of the tenancy could constitute a deposit in the event that the tenant decided to buy the unit at market value subsequently. The changes requested are in reference to affordable housing requirements in the legal agreement to be removed. So in accordance with the requirements of the current government funding. The Housing Association proposed to purchase 5 units at market value for less affordable rent. The officer's recommendation is to agree to the proposal once the Housing Association have acquired the units and a full report is before members. At their previous meeting, members considered that the proposal would represent an identifiable community loss and requested the applicant's comments on how this loss to the community could be compensated. The responses from the Housing Association has been quoted in the report and the update for you. Nothing further to add, Chair.
No speakers? Councillor Perry.
Yes, this has been brought to me before, and before that's happened. And I think members were surprised and disappointed that local people who, as I said, could rent these properties for 2 years, and they're battling and pulling towards the deposit to buy the properties. And I think that's been a cumulative loss, and still is a cumulative loss. I know the Housing Association, I've read the update, and some discussion, I believe, prior to that last one, took place between developers and the Housing Association and our officers. They think it will be okay. I still don't think it's okay. But there you go. Maybe there's little we can do about it. Maybe we have to accept this for the update, but I'm still not happy with it.
I struggle with this because it does seem to me that at some point we have to make a decision on this. We can't just leave it sort of hanging around. And I listened to the debate last time and talked about this, and I thought, well, is somebody taking us for a ride, or is somebody thinking that they can get away with the same thing really, doing something that we don't want to do really. We want to do something else. On the face of it, as I think Councillor Kane said on the last occasion, the Housing Association buying the houses at full price and letting them at less than full price. I don't understand that. That doesn't seem to work. I think it would be helpful if we've got somebody from strategic housing here to explain the rationale behind how they see this, because I haven't understood. Maybe it's because I don't understand, but I haven't understood how this is supposed to work.
Matthias, can you explain to us?
I'll try.
Don't stop there.
Yeah. So, look, where Connect and other social providers get their money from, such as Homes and Community, Homes England as they're called now, and other sources of funding, they're able to tap into funding streams. They have money to buy properties. What they don't have is a sufficient supply of affordable units to go and buy. They can therefore go on the open market, take a hit, if you will, buy properties at market value, and then do what they're supposed to do and rent them or sell them at the discount to people on their lists. So they are still going to be affordable houses. You're going to end up with 5. I hear what members are saying. You are not happy with how this has come about in relation to the permission that you have to accept and grant. And I think that message is coming back quite loudly and clearly about that negotiation. But I think in the end you are getting a better outcome in terms of numbers. But I accept that isn't the package that you granted planning permission for, and we will, I think, take this back to our colleagues to say, if you want to amend any planning permissions in the future, you probably need to come back to the planning committee earlier with your ideas rather than your way forward. That helps.
Graham and Nick, Councillor Thompson.
Well, it doesn't, Thais, but at the end of it, what happens is a developer is granted planning permission with a certain set of conditions, and virtually got to the end of the development, and now wants to change the conditions and saying, well, what we'll do is we'll sell you the social housing or the affordable zones we promised. So they're abdicating their responsibility. Yes, we get in the units, I get that, but the developer who was given permission has abdicated the responsibility of passing that to someone else. So if you like, us as taxpayers in the wider scale of things through Homes England are now going to be paying him for something we said he couldn't do, if you understand that logic. So I'm moving quite categorically refusal until they meet their obligations. That I'm going to object to this all the way through. I'm sorry. If that's a rant, it's a rant.
It's heard loud and clear, members. I think all the advice that officers were trying to present to when Connect came to discuss this was, what's the outcome? Is the outcome more or less of what you're starting with? Even if the developer gets the benefit, and he gets the benefit of, and it is modest, but it is a benefit to him, that isn't what the planning committee granted the permission on in the starting place. But the outcome is, I think they were focused on the outcome rather than the starting point of the principle of who should deliver affordable housing, the planning applicant, the developer, or if it is in a roundabout way, the registered provider.
I agree that they're selling these now.
because the registered provider is able to buy them at market rate.
That wasn't the deal we struck, was it?
No, that's the message loud and clear.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes. Sorry for my naivety, but I've got some questions. So how many affordable housing roles are originally? Can you tell me that? John?
Through the chair. When the original agreement was made, it was for four apartments.
Right.
And as I say, the current proposal is for 5.
Right. So there's 20% more that they're selling out at retail really to somebody else to have a problem as far as the house is concerned. Is that my impression? Right. So they've got the cake and eat it yet again as developers. Is that the impression? Okay. Right. It just seems to be a prevailing theme amongst these two meetings that I've been blessed with.
It's a battle.
It is a battle, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's difficult. Connect can operate as a private buyer in this situation. They have money to buy houses to then turn them into affordable houses. That's not a bad thing. It's the fact that they've come in here and this developer's said, oh, well, I've got these 4 properties, what about these 4? And they've said yes. And those 4 happen to be the ones that were also down for affordable.
It just seems to be a bit of a conjuring trick. Look at the left hand so you can't see what the right hand's doing.
And it started life as a debate, as a viability case, and members had to accept something that wasn't policy compliant.
Okay.
You end up with more, but you don't get the permission that was granted.
No, the developer gets
yes.
ends up with more.
Yes.
I think, through you, Chair, we discussed this last time. I think it's a principle here. We passed planning permission, and the conditions are quite clear. It's for affordable ones. After 2 years, that's your right. It's for a deposit if you wish to purchase those properties, and after we deny for people or for families or whatever the opportunity of doing so. And that's what we discussed at the original planning committee. That was the conditions we applied, we accepted it, and we talked about it. And I think we should stick to that. It's simple as that. And I'll second what.
Great, thanks, Eric. Councillor Naylor.
Mine's a question. So you refuse. What happens? Does the developer then deliver the 4 houses agreed to in the original planning application?
You might not like the sound. Connect to bought those houses. So Connect own those houses now. They have them. So we would have to enforce against Connect.
So the house is bolted anyway.
How's that been allowed to happen?
You can buy and sell property. Whoever owns it, the risk of planning permissions run with that. Connect will still rent those properties out at affordable rates. They will have to vary, either apply to appeal if the decision is to not accept the outcome. The council could choose to under-enforce the breach of planning control if it chose to, or we're a bit in a rock and a hard place because they've gone and got these properties. They want to do them as affordable, but the type of affordable offer wasn't the planning permission that, as Councillor First said, was what the permission was granted for. and they develop a
Can
housing
I
effect.
just come back before I know Andrew wants to speak, but that's because it's because there's an agreement being made between our officers and the housing association, which has completely disregarded the condition of the planning committee, which I find appalling. It's quite clear that in the update.
Andrew. Right. Thank you, Chair. As Councillor Maiden says, what do we do if we refuse it? What happens if we refuse it? On the face of it, there are 5 houses in this thing where there were only 4 before. So even though we don't like the method by which it's been achieved, we actually got one more affordable house. And I probably ought to put that word in inverted commas, however, because in some senses no houses are affordable. But let's not. Well, we need to reform the housing market in the UK. We can't do that. We can't do that here. But well, we could try to do that, and I have some ideas, but I know it's hard to say, but maybe we ought to improve this on the grounds that if we don't, then well, you can see our dilemma.
Yeah.
That the alternative is equally unpalatable.
But that's the decision puts in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Be put in.
I'm here my colleague says, but I'm at a point where as a planning committee, I'm thinking, where do we put our principles? If we said we wanted to do this, what kind of a message are we sending out to other people, other housing associations, other contractors that we work with? Are they going to do the same? Will this happen to us again? Will this always kind of start a circulation of? Do we want that happening? We've already had this come up to us twice. Does that mean that we'll open a kind of world with other people and say, oh, these have obviously we've done it with Connect with this particular plot. This can happen somewhere else. So I would agree with Councillor Turner and Councillor Burton to say that.
You've said pretty much what I've said. We talk constantly in this committee about setting precedents. It sets a dangerous precedent for me because if I was a developer, I could get planning permission as soon as I finish that change it and then take you on. This sends out a very poor message if we let them get away with this for me. We agreed, I know perhaps I'm being too moralistic, I don't know. We agreed, and like any deal in life, it's only a deal that works for both parties. This is not a deal that works for both parties. It works in favour of the development and the cost of people's homes. And I'm sorry, I think that's totally agree with you. We shouldn't set a precedent because they'll all be at it. We know what they're like. They find a chink in our armour and they'll go for it. I think we should start first. We agreed 4, you supplied them with 4. And how they get themselves out of what they've done by going around the back is up to them. And if we have to enforce, I'll say publicly, we should enforce. That's what we have enforcement for. This is no different from somebody building an extension that shouldn't be there. They breach planning regulations. We're either here to deliver within the rules or we're not. And if we're not, I'll stop bothering coming because it's a waste of everybody's time. Rant over again.
Exactly what he said.
I mean, as somebody who sits on loads of committees, it's a bloody battle every time we come in on affordable loans. It should be simple. It's 20% of market price is a discount, or it's 20% off discount on rents. It's simple, but it's got to a stage now where you've got to have mathematicians coming in and sitting and listening and looking at things to say, hang on, that over there is trying to get something out of me for nothing, and it's time it stopped. So I'm going to back you up there on this one. Yeah.
Can I ask whether when we gave the planning permission, whether we were quite specific? I know what the guideline says about 20%, even without us saying and being specific in allowing a social landlord saying we will provide you with a little bit more, but it's not the same.
It isn't the same. It was a bespoke offer relevant to that application. It wasn't even 20% of the total number of dwellings. Because and it was a bespoke offer. It wasn't in perpetuity. It had its flaws, but as a bespoke model for delivering something for that community, that was what the planning committee said was an acceptable package to make the permission acceptable and grant planning permission. They aren't delivered that. If you run it through and you refuse, and we go back to Connect and we say that the deed of variation isn't acceptable to this planning committee, they have two options. They have the right of appeal, they want to take that, or they have an ability to say, well, we will fulfil the obligations of the Section 106, which is to make it available with a 2-year limit. But after that time, as I understand it, the obligation doesn't retain in perpetuity. So they could sell those houses at market rate if they want. It's a time-limited Section 106. That's the nub of what planning permission was granted for. They could. So those are their options to take forward.
Forgive me, Chair, if I'm going to be thick. So that means that Connect can say, okay, we'll take these 5 on. Tenants in those properties can actually take up the deal. They can, after 2 years, decide if they wish to pay half their rent towards the deposit and take up that option. That's perfectly acceptable to me, if they wish to do that. So I don't know how other members feel, but that is acceptable to me, because we're not denying those tenants or in those flats the opportunity to take up what we originally wanted to do.
Councillor Mary,
Yes, I can see the logic, yes. We are being provided with something, but the principle is that we gave planning permission and it was the original developer who was supposed to provide that. Now, a social landlord went and bought some properties. I don't want to be dealing with Connect, I want to be dealing with the original developer, and he needs to provide me with what the statutory guidelines say on a development of this size.
So you again, Chair, I don't think there are any choices they're already doing so, but if they will take up that condition.
It's an option, but I'm just setting out what their options would be. They would have a right of appeal. Everyone has a right of appeal if you want to. They could come back with a new offer of some description. Or they could honour the terms of the legal agreement that they now have, having owned the property.
Okay.
So there's that.
But if we're doing an Eric's deal, that makes the developer off the hook.
Well, the
developer's already gone off.
They're all gone.
He's already off.
He's gone.
He's gone.
We give Connect the option.
He's gone.
No, it's not. I don't think we should enforcement supplying it for affordable owners.
On top of what we've done.
No, it hasn't supplied anything to sell the market rates.
Can I propose, if Eric isn't going to, Councillor Firth isn't going to do it, can I propose what Councillor Firth said as a proposition, that we accept this with those provisos that you talked about, that they would offer the tenants the same deal that they were going to get in the first place.
I think we could propose that because they're new owners and not the original applicants. They may say, we'll go what we like. I think the best way
to go around the merry-go-round again.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, submitted
we haven't put that.
is the developer.
Yeah. So
we not Connect out.
Yeah.
So far it's been moved for refusal by Councillor Turner and it was seconded by Councillor Firth. So we've got to get that out of this way. Those who are in favour of refusal, well, a specific ground.
We're quite clear that we expect the terms of the original planning conditions to be implemented.
Fairly to fail to comply with previously approved conditions. Sure.
So if you've got a situation where you've got an affordable housing provider who's bought the houses, but we don't know if he's going to implement the obligations that the planning permission requires of those properties. He's going to let them as affordable. They are going to let them as affordable, but not in necessarily the 10-year arrangements that are being put forward. Does that conflict with our unitary development plan policies or our emerging local plan policies? Do we need to defer to taking a legal opinion and draft something and bring it back next time?
Sorry, because Connect Housing are not the applicants in this case, can we refuse this and then suggest to Connect Housing that they put in an application to do what we want with those houses?
Or they said should not defer it, but seek more legal advice.
It's a very difficult situation we're in, members. If
we were prepared to defer it,
why would we be blessing
if we're prepared to defer it, I will withdraw my objections to it, but I will make a point, and if they want to watch the webcast, I will object to it again unless they come back with some money for the 4 affordable homes that they, I believe, morally and legally on
So you will be a proposal.
As long as we defer it.
Well, I will retract. Yeah. I will as well. So we know we
we stay.
Yeah. Alright.
But on the basis that you don't accept the officer recommendation in principle, we need to find either a way forward or come back with a reason for refusal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those in favour of deferral, please show. Next, page 95, back from Edmund. If Paul asked me to go summarise the highway section of the report relating to the phasing of the required highway works as following. Phase 1 consists of the widening of the carriageway from Smithy's Lane to the start of Phase 3 to 6.5 metres to accommodate any future development and HGV movements to the reclamation site. Phase 2, the provision of a 2-metre footway from where the existing footway ends on Smithy's Lane to the start of the bridleway. Phase 3, a new footway including steps along the widening section of the proposed estate access road to connect public right-of-way 141 and 143, and also the site access road to be constructed to an adaptable standard. Phase 4, the connection of a strategic route around the proposed development for pedestrians and cyclists. Thank you, Chair.
Existing public rights of way will be protected. In the officer's opinion, there will be substantial improvements to public access onto existing public rights of way by the provision of footpath links or a new footpath and cycleway located through the site. These will provide significant benefit by connecting footpaths throughout the immediate locality in a good bad condition. So to conclude, it is considered by officers that the proposed development will provide significant highway and footpath improvements whilst enabling brownfield sites to come forward for housing, and that the benefits of the overall development outweigh the harm that would arise through not securing Section 106 contributions in this instance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Members, my name is David Story. I'm a Chartered Town Planner speaking on behalf of the applicant. I was involved in this application back in 2015. I presented on many viability cases to this committee and to the school committee over the years. I know how testing it is for yourselves on these matters. But there are terms of engagement. In terms of this application, we did produce a Section 106 agreement covering all the matters. In parallel to that, we were taking more detailed assessments of the works required, the abnormal costs, and they look quite frightening. Now, I know you've got a private paper with the figures themselves, but the abnormal costs relating to the road and the phases that have been mentioned are quite significant, to such a point that in terms of independent assessment, and with independent assessments you get slightly different opinions on figures that be presented by both sides, but we're not a million miles away from figures. If anything, we were promoting a higher sales value than the assessor was suggesting. But even with those figures, taking into account education contribution and affordable at different percentage levels, it was just never going to make a profit at all. And even with nil contribution, the profit at sales level is minimal, land values are minimal. And in terms of open market developers looking at this site, nobody would touch it. The issue that we've got here obviously is that the applicant is a builder and owns the land, so obviously could take a view that even with significant abnormal costs for the road, that they could potentially develop the site out. But there's a question mark there as well. But we are here today obviously because of the viability position, and to have any chance of going forward, then we would need to support the resolution by officers in that respect. As I said, the detailed figures are there for you. Hopefully you've had a look at them, and that's the harsh reality of this site. The scheme itself, in terms of the layout and design, is exceptional. I think at the time when it was a committee, I think everybody was supportive of it and recognised that this was a bespoke scheme of very high quality. It would be a shame if it's lost as a consequence of viability, but that's the situation that we're in, and we actually consider being put before you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, David. Colleagues, I think with this one, it is bringing the brownfield site forward, but you've also got to look at the bigger picture, which is for people like rambling round or cycling, all that kind of stuff. This is one way that it can bring it together. Apart from obviously giving us another 40 odd houses in Etman Black. Councillor Turner.
I've read all the possible viability and I can see why there's no money on this one. It is a brownfield site. As you well know, we've got some affordable local businesses. There's nothing in saving grace, I suppose, is that there is 8 two-bed dwellings, so they'll be obviously priced at that price point. 5 two-bed apartments, so whilst we may not be getting affordable loans, we will be getting some smaller units, which are usually cheap for people to rent or buy. So from that point of view, I think it's a good deal. It is a brownfield site around contact. I suspect it's going to cost a small fortune to get the roads in there. So I would approve this on all in those grounds. It is a difficult site to develop. It is brownfield. It will bring some smaller units in, 3-bedroom units rather than a big house. So I can take that with me on this one. Personally speaking, so I would move recommendation on this.
I'll say that too.
Sorry, mine's a question, and I wasn't on the 2015 committee, so pardon me if I'm a bit naive on this. You're talking about phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are we just talking about the widening on the roads of those phases, or is there a plan to further develop that whole site, the Ponderosa site with houses? Is that what you refer to as phase 2, 3, 4, 5? Was it just the highway bit? Yeah. So is there any, and I'm not sure if I'm even allowed to ask this question, is there any proposal in the future to develop the west Ponderosa site, or is it just this site? Just where we looked at today?
Well, now we should consider what's in front of us.
I know, I just thought I wanted to ask the question.
Is it? No, just saying it's a
Yes. I think we should be swapping seats with I'm feeling quite nauseous of looking at business plans that just make it stack up to 20% so they can object to doing anything that they should do as far as local community as far as contributions concerned. Just looking down the costs, there's contingencies in. No, I'm not going to mention the cost itself. The opposite. What happened there is the costs as far as putting in the maybes and what ifs. And the maybes and what ifs stack up to the amount of money that they would have had to contribute. And I find it quite tedious that every meeting I come across this. Is there no contingency that we can put in as well, that if they don't have to meet these costs and contingencies, that then it goes into the contribution of the local community instead of getting away with it again of just putting business plans in at 20%. Because they just play the game. You can see it smacks you in the face every time you look at it. It's 20% mark that they always go for. And it's okay saying, yeah, they're putting more houses and contributing because they're paying the rates in wet and light and stuff like that, but they're not putting anything in the local community and just using lawyers and accountants to be able to get away with it. I sound more than conservative myself.
Thank you, Chair. Now, I shall be very careful, like Councillor Thompson, not talking about sums of money, but having read the private report, I'm not even sure that this whole scheme is viable. Now, you might say that isn't a planning issue. You know, you can give permission to anything, really. Even if it doesn't stack up there, it's quite clear from the council's assessor that they think, they end up with a huge negative land value. So I do wonder, maybe we need advice on this, why we are even considering this, let alone not having the Section 106 things that we would want for such a development. Having said that, I mean, I can't fault the development. It's well done, but it's a question really whether we should be giving permission to a development that just won't work, in the opinion of somebody. Well, I'll just put that on the table. I'm not quite sure that this is going to work.
Graham and then
Councillor Thompson referred to what we would normally refer as an overage, so if there's money left at the end of it, then we can get a percentage of that. But as I said, having read the private report and decided for a number of years, I think there's some margin whether they'll even be able to make anything out of it anyway. I know you're right, there's always abnormal, but this is going to be really expensive. Really expensive.
I've got a question. In terms of the entrance into Penrose, what's actually being done? It's a wide entrance to the road, isn't it? Larger heavy bus vehicles are turning, so it's a really big entrance that's going through. And it's a road that I constantly use to come to this capacity, and actually it's quite dangerous when you go, as you just go from the corner. I'm just trying to figure out, I like the development itself, in terms of a highways perspective, what's being done just at the junction where you would potentially go into that, because it is constantly used by a lot of bicycle riders, a lot of people walking, because it's so close into town kind of thing. So what is being done in terms of road crossing and stuff like that, what should we do?
The junction of Smith's Lane and the main road has historically been already put in as part of a previous development that was supposed to be undertaken and completed. However, this is still not being done. As such, the council haven't adopted that section at the moment. But in terms of the junction layout as it stands, there are any circular road markings, that's as it is, and we won't take further words.
I would have come back to the serious issues, which is, from my point of view, something that I would like, and it's quite dangerous. And I've seen many times bicycles and highways report which have a lot more detailed information. I like the plan, I like the ideas, but I think it just needs a bit more work in that sense.
Eric and then Councillor Mayor. Thank you, Chair. We are here, you can have to look at the application before us. The cost, although relevant, but the risk is to the applicant, surely. Not us. If you can't deliver, you can't deliver. So, but I think it's a great development, and I think it's maybe generous, but obviously it's confident that it can do it, otherwise it wouldn't apply to this planning committee. And we can go around discussing viability, which perhaps is not for us to discuss in a way, because it's not our risk. So I think we should just consider the application before us.
Whilst I agree with my colleague about, the risk isn't ours, it's someone else's. My risk is section 106. I'm not going to get that. And my question in a different setting would be, why would someone develop if it's so expensive and may not break even if it was, why would you do that? Well, it's somewhere else, but all I'm saying is my risk is no better section 106. So I'm liking everything I'm being shown, I can hear highways in, it's my whole point. But that is the risk to us, is section 106.
You've got to look at what we've been presented with. I know the area very well. I know the amount of work that's gone on down there. I know the amount of vehicles that's been moving down there. There's no point doing those services until all heavy works is finished, because you'll be replacing it yet again. So it's pretty pointless doing it first place. You do it when it's finished. All in all, I can see for the last years where we've been going with these plans. I am in favour of them, and it's only a good to our area, not only just Edmund White, but also you're talking about Ravensthorpe, Murfield, Dewsbury. So It's a long-term project, long-term plan. We're getting there eventually, but we can only judge on what we've got today. It has been moved and it has been seconded. So I think it's time we took a vote, personally. Unless anybody's got anything. So, being moved, being seconded, please show your hands, those in favour of this application. 5, 6, against, 1, abstain. No abstention. This time I'm now mathematics. I can count to 6. I thought you were fine. No. Julie will be doing the lessons. So that has been eventually approved. Final item. Item 17, that's is page 113. Yet again, this is on yellow paper. Should we need to scrutinise it? Joe.
Thanks, Chair. The application relates to the development of 46 dwellings off Ashbourne Drive. Members will recall resolving to grant reserve matters at their previous meeting. At the outline planning stage, a legal agreement was made to provide 9 affordable units. When the development was 54 dwellings, so that equates to 16.6% of the total. This application was originally to amend the agreement to 0 affordable housing provision due to development costs. The viability appraisal submitted in support has been assessed by an independent auditor who concluded that 5 units, comprising 4 socially rented and 1 intermediate unit, will be viable, which brings provision down to 10.1%. This has been accepted by the applicant and is now the basis of the application and the officers are recommending approval. At their previous meeting, members requested the applicant to reconsider their profit level to release further finance towards affordable housing. Officers have received no response to that. The recommendation remains for approval. Nothing further to add, Chair.
No speakers on this one. You're opening back in, Andrew?
Yeah, well, yes. Those members who've been on the committee a while will know my views about this application. And the various to's and fro's that we've had. I'm not surprised that there's been no response from the developers, because all through this application they have not responded to all sorts of things, and that of course is deeply frustrating very much, because you just can't get on with it. I suppose that getting 5 affordable units out of Red Road is better than no affordable units. But I'm feeling a bit negative about it in that sense. Because I think that if 5 is better than nothing. So, and I mean, I think some of the abnormal costs are due to the fact that the design of the development has put abnormal costs into it, with crossing the farm track. Sorry, I'm not trying to labour that point. I know I've gone on about it for long enough, but I suppose we ought to grudgingly accept that we can't put that in the decision makers.
Again, question, how do we prevent landfill then from doing what previous but one application has done, which is sell or type affordable housing to connect or pocket the money themselves? And we put a condition on the application that they are responsible and they're not been able to sell to third party. Relies completely different. I don't know.
You can't put conditions on, but you can send a very clear message about your disappointment in that was to material. Ultimately, that would need a deed variation of some description and would have to come back either to a forum like this or at least through a regularisation, so it would have an opportunity to make a decision on the acceptability or not of that as a proposal. So that gives you comfort that that couldn't just happen.
So mine's more of a question. Given the fact they want to reduce from 9 to 5, could we put an overage on this?
Overage really only works when you're dealing with very large-scale developments. If the local plan is adopted and there are some very significant scale sites there, when you're building out over 5, 10, plus 15 years and the market is changing, overage works when you're dealing with schemes of 2, 3, 4, 500, and you wait till the first 100's built and you see whether those have sold for more, and then you reappraise. But you need that time frame. When you're dealing with 50, 40, 50 houses, it isn't designed for that.
So there was one I could give you an example of, which was less than 100 units, which had an overage on it.
I'm not saying it doesn't happen, I'm just saying it isn't designed for that. And if that wouldn't be a good practice example. I'm not saying it can't. You can put things on if you think they're justified and fair, but my advice to you is overage isn't appropriate on these scale schemes. The theory is you build at a rate of about 30 to 40, 50 dwellings a year, one a week, if you're going. Well, in 1 year the market isn't going to change that significantly, so you wouldn't be in a position. Plus, there isn't the flex of the numbers here to say I can take a viability reappraisal later down the line. You either accept it's an acceptable viability now, and that's their moment in time, or you don't accept it. But you can't really say for 50 houses you can come back and revisit it.
I just feel it's a bit same as we started out with 9 and 7 and we're back to 4 or 5. What's the right order of almost?
I'm on the same page as Councillor Turner here. We seem to about 20% never materialises. We get the same kind of stacking up time and again. And this happens even when it's our own land. And I'm thinking, here we go again. And, we're put in a terrible position having to accept the unacceptable. So once again, we're down to 5. There clearly isn't a strong message out there to the developers. They think they can do this and get away with it. Something we're doing in the planning domain isn't ensuring that we win. The developers seem to have the upper hand regardless. So, 20%, I haven't seen anything materialise like 20%, and I'm looking forward to when we develop in the hundreds, and I will be saying, let's enforce if it doesn't come, because I'll be taking them to court.
I think we're all waiting, but officers as well find this challenging, where we are constantly asked, because of the site constraints, because of the abnormal costs associated, it's not viable. It is challenging for officers as well, but it is a process, it is fair, it is accountable, and it is scrutinised by external parties. When the local plan is adopted, those sites should be more viable at 20% of delivery of affordable housing. These are whole sites or they are the remnants of the UDP. They are generally more difficult sites. There is something about the housing markets area and whether the values have risen enough. But nonetheless, the local plan is the vehicle to hopefully see a stronger message for this council to say, developers, we expect 20%, you've got to have some pretty compelling reasons. And the national planning framework has been revised to give members more comfort that they should be expecting it to be an exception rather than the norm. But these are legacy sites. This goes back 2013, 2014. It is quite a sloping site. It has some constraints. Sorry, that's my answer.
I hear and agree with everything you said, but I'm sitting here as a representative and I'm thinking these are the statutory guidelines, 20%, no matter how poor the guidelines may be. And I've sat through this, and this is about the third we're dealing with, where the costs don't seem to stack up, and what the affordable housing, what the population of Kirklees District Council needs is affordable housing, where joint working income is pitched at 30,000, and I'm sitting here expecting my 20% and getting something like 10.1 and 5, and it's beggars belief. I think there has to be a stronger message. I look forward to our plan being approved. I look forward to being able to say 20% is what we expect. We know that we've done all the site investigations. Nobody can come to us and say this kind of, what can I say, under my breath, dribble and get away with it. So, it's one of those situations where what can you do but accept?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. One is, if it's red road, they'll know down to the penny what they're going to make on the site before they even start it out. But they'll have accountants and surveyors looking at this in detail. They'll know. And then to come back to us and say that it's not viable is almost laughable. And I'm getting to the point now where I'm just going to refuse every single one that doesn't come back with nearly the 20% and the contributions. Certainly our contribution and education contribution of 130,000. When we're in such a dilemma in this borough as far as education is concerned, it's almost, I feel embarrassed if I walked out that door and asked them to do this. So there's absolutely no way made from a company, an organisation as Richard Redrow holds, that won't stick their hand in the pockets and contribute, then I'll never pass another one. So I really refuse.
I think one of the things you have to look at as well is how many speakers have we got here? Down to over 0. So we know what we're doing.
Yes, I could say some exceedingly rude things about this particular developer. Yes, but I am not going to, because planning officers will know how many times they've requested stuff from them and not got it. And Mr. Woollen, who was here, was Mr. Richard's predecessor on this, and expressed his deep frustration on many occasions through the course of planning application. But to go on to the point about sites in the new plan, I think the message we need to send to developers is don't be greedy, because there are elements of the plan on this site which is exceedingly steep at the top end. There are actually two separate developments in here, because you can't very easily run a road all the way up the site. It's not too steep. But going back to this wretched crossing of the the farm track. I think that's added to the cost. And if in general, developers had plans that weren't so exciting from their point of view, weren't so extensive, then they may well be able to afford the affordable homes that we want, even though you end up with a smaller number, perhaps. I think we need to send a message of some kind, that sort of nature, so that they don't try and cram so many houses on that the abnormal, they may come back and say, well, the abnormal costs of doing this mean that we can't do X, Y, and Z. Education contributions, actually, I was quite pleased that they contributed that, because given the size of the site, that's not a bad contribution to a local school. And in this case, it is a main school that will get that money. So, going back to my original point, 5 is better than nothing. It's not as good as 9, but given everything, then I move that we accept the recommendation.
Whoever seconded it.
And as a local member, I support him. I would prefer.
Thank you.
I would prefer. Well, yes, but you're aware of the sorts of object of the site as well, and if it is like that, it will be. But Redville will have taken all that into consideration. I do agree. But he's a local member, and he's supporting it, so I support him.
I think that seems is when we get local planning place, we're going to have to start and close here.
Without that,
to develop business in there.
Exactly. So this
is what we expect.
Yeah.
This is what we want. Otherwise, go away.
Yeah.
Dave? It's been moved, it's been seconded. Those in favour, begrudgingly. Please,
Go on, Kirklees.
No. Don't more restrict on this.
6 against 3. So that has been passed. That is